Hi there, welcome to Flaming Star Podfics. Today we will be reading a story called Four Winters by feeyaj on AO3. And I apologize if I did not pronounce that correctly, but fear not, you can find the link to the story in the description. This is a My Hero Academia alternate universe one-shot featuring Katsukibakugou and Izukumidoriya. This short story is not only a very sweet and very romantic story, but it is also an historical piece. I love historical pieces. There's something very atmospheric about it. To assist readers in understanding some of the Japanese terms and imagery, the author included some notes, which I think are worth reading so that you can envision what the author is talking about. So I'm just going to read them. 1. The Japanese bunting is a small passerine bird native to East Asia. It breeds exclusively on the Japanese islands and migrates south during the winter months, although some individuals remain in Japan year-round. 2. Kanzashi are traditional ornamental hair accessories used in Japanese and Chinese coiffures such as hairpins, combs, and decorative clips. Traditionally, they are selected according to the season and the wearer's hairstyle, following an intricate system of conventions in which particular designs and colors correspond to specific months of the year. 3. As June is one of Japan's rainiest months, the traditional seasonal calendar associates it with the graceful weeping willow. The willow also serves as a symbol of the geisha world, reflected in the term karyūkai, or the world of flowers and willows. Hydrangeas, which bloom during the rainy season, are often paired with willow motifs as a complementary seasonal emblem. 4. January Kanzashi vary in design each year, though they traditionally feature green, red, and white. Some motifs are perennial favorites, most notably shochi kubai, the combination of pine, bamboo, and plum blossom, which symbolizes longevity, resilience, and auspicious fortune. And 5, wakadana, or young master, a respectful term for the son of a patron or household/business owner. Don't worry if you didn't catch all of that. I'm going to include it in the description below this video. So without further ado, let's read Four Winters. The summary is, he waited for him for 4 winters. Winter landscapes possessed a beauty unlike any other. No two snowflakes were ever the same. They settled upon sleeves and cloaks alike, lingering just long enough for one to admire the intricate patterns etched into each crystal. Layer by layer, they blanketed the earth, wrapping the world in pristine white. Frost brushed rosy color into unsuspecting cheeks, while the wind carried its whistling song through the gardens and painted strange silver vines across window panes. Izuku had always loved his homeland for its gentle winters. The very sight of the season's first snowfall never failed to send his thoughts wandering. Whenever azure eyes caught sight of drifting snow, every lesson and obligation suddenly seemed unbearably trivial. All he wanted was to escape into his favorite garden and disappear among its quiet depths, which was precisely what he had done. His governess would certainly be displeased this time, especially after he'd shamelessly begged the servants not to reveal his whereabouts. But these snow-covered grounds belonged to his heart. Wrapped snugly in layers of silk kimono and a richly embroidered cloak lined with sable fur, the young Omega soon vanished among the frozen grove. His robes shimmered with pale shades of white and blue, blending so naturally with the winter scenery that he scarcely feared being discovered. His fingertips drifted across magnolia branches thick with frost. One tree became another, then another still. By the time Izuku realized how numb his hands had become, he had already wandered far from the estate. He tucked his hand back into the fur muff and curled his fingers into a fist, exhaling a slow breath just to watch the cloud of mist bloom before him. The cold air stung his nose. He sniffled softly. For a moment he imagined how ridiculous he must look from afar, and the thought drew a quiet laugh from his lips, startling a flock of sleeping buntings into flight. With unhurried steps, the Omega continued deeper into the garden. Snow crunched pleasantly beneath his boots. The faint chiming of his favorite Kanzashi accompanied him with every movement. Though hardly appropriate for winter, the ornament was far too precious to leave behind. The tortoiseshell pin was crowned with gilded hydrangea blossoms that seemed to bloom amidst Izuku's dark green hair. Strings of pearl beads dangled beneath the flowers, knocking softly against one another whenever he moved. He had loved that sound from the very first day he'd received the gift. It had been a rainy day in June. The heavens had seemed determined to weep alongside him. Only one voice had offered comfort, a deep voice speaking promises with quiet certainty while carefully weaving the ornament into his hair. Beneath a willow tree that shielded them from both the rain and prying eyes, they had shared their first kiss and their farewell. Izuku remembered it perfectly, the taste of salt and impending sorrow, the desperate strength with which he had been held. A kiss so cherished that even now, years later, the memory left his pulse unsteady. Without thinking, he ran his tongue across his lips, despite knowing the winter cold would leave them cracked afterward. I will return to you in 4 winters' time. You have my word. Please stay a little longer. Izuku had wanted to give himself to him then and there, consequences be damned, just to know the warmth of those arms one last time, even if it meant staining his name forever. I dare not ask for more than this kiss, the man had whispered. This one precious thing that keeps hope alive within my heart. Lost within the memory, Izuku failed to notice the figure approaching from behind. Snow crunched beneath heavy boots. A new path appeared across the untouched white. The stranger stopped several paces away. Dark traveling leathers disappeared beneath a heavy cloak, reinforced with thick panels of stitched hide, lending him the appearance of a battle-worn commander. Slanted crimson eyes swept over the Omega's figure, from the hem of his pale cloak buried in snow to the crown of his head, where large flakes had settled among dark curls. Then it reached him, a familiar scent. Licorice. Rich. Warm. Unmistakable. Izuku immediately convinced himself he was imagining it, which was why, when he turned around, he was wholly unprepared for the face waiting there. Sharp cheekbones, a straight nose, hair the color of wheat, eyes like blood and embers. His breath caught. His heart did not simply race, it thundered. The alpha standing before him radiated confidence, maturity, and strength. Everything about him made Izuku want to step forward and throw himself into those waiting arms. Neither of them moved. Not yet. Both were far too greedy to rush such a moment. Isn't it plum blossom season? The alpha asked, one step closer. And suddenly the scent of his pheromones grew stronger. Ordinarily, yes, Bakugou-san, Izuku replied softly. But this Kanzashi is very dear to me. They continued to close the distance between them. Izuku watched the subtle flare of Katsuki's nostrils as the fragrance of violets thickened in the winter air. But red suits you beautifully, Wakadana-sama. A smile tugged at the corner of the alpha's mouth. Are you flattering me? To meet his gaze, Izuku had to tilt his head upward. Not at all. The tremor in their chests made their breathing difficult. Somewhere in the distance came the sound of horses releasing into the paddocks. Emerald eyes traveled carefully across the face before him. Only then did Izuku notice the scar, a healed line crossing the left side of Katsuki's cheek. Slowly, hesitantly, he removed a hand from the muff and reached toward him. His fingertips brushed the scar, barely touching. Kachan, your face. Concern trembled through his voice. The sweetness of his scent turned faintly bitter. Izuku, it doesn't matter. Katsuki closed his eyes and leaned into the touch. At the childhood nickname, something inside him softened. How long had it been since he'd heard it? I survived because you believed I would. Large gloved hands disappeared beneath Katsuki's cloak before emerging with a small wooden box. It was plain, almost disappointingly simple, and yet he offered it to Izuku as though it were something priceless. Please, Katsuki said quietly. Open it. Izuku accepted the gift with both hands. His fingers traced the polished lacquered surface before he carefully lifted the lid. The mechanism inside was uncomplicated. A soft click echoed through the winter air. Then something extraordinary unfolded before his eyes. A flower. Delicate petals shimmered beneath the pale sunlight, catching fragments of silver and green as though carved from precious stone. For a moment, Izuku simply stared. Then curiosity won, as it always did. He lifted the flower toward his nose and inhaled experimentally, hoping to catch even the faintest fragrance. A low laugh immediately answered him. What is it? The question escaped before he could stop himself. Fortunately, Katsuki had never seemed bothered by Izuku's endless curiosity. If anything, he had always looked fond of it. A beryl chrysanthemum, Katsuki explained. Craftsmen in the Western Territories are famous for work like this. I found it during my travels and thought of you. His gaze lingered on Izuku's smile. For just a moment, the alpha's emotional scent spilled free. Sweetness settled warmly on the tongue. Home. Izuku's chest tightened. Thank you. The words felt painfully inadequate. Still, Katsuki seemed to understand. The warrior slowly removed one glove. Then he reached forward. His fingers disappeared into Izuku's dark curls. Gentle, careful, reverent. The touch sent a shiver through the Omega's entire body. Your hair has grown. The words were spoken almost like a confession. Izuku lowered his gaze. You were the last person to touch it. Silence. I waited for you. His vision blurred immediately. There was no reason to hold himself together anymore. No reason to pretend. Not now. Not after 4 years. Izuku, the alpha's voice broke. And then, finally, Katsuki pulled him into his arms. Strong arms, safe arms. The same arms Izuku had dreamed of during countless lonely nights. Warmth surrounded him from every side. The scent of licorice wrapped around the Omega like a blanket, while soft kisses found his forehead, one after another. I kept my promise. The words were spoken directly against his hair. I came back. Another kiss. I'm here. That was all it took. Everything shattered. I missed you, Izuku sobbed. The tears came faster than he could stop them. I missed you so much. His hands clutched desperately at Katsuki's cloak. 4 winters of loneliness, 4 winters of prayers, 4 winters of uncertainty. All 4 winters, Kachan. His voice cracked completely. I waited for you, every single one. Katsuki gathered him closer. One hand cradled the back of his head. The other rubbed slow circles across his shoulders. Hush. He pressed his cheek against dark curls. I'm here. Something gentle, something soothing. Words spoken too quietly for Izuku to fully hear. The alpha continued murmuring them anyway. By the time the tears began freezing against flushed cheeks, Katsuki finally drew back. Only far enough to see him. Only far enough to look into his eyes. Snowflakes drifted lazily between them. Izuku. There was a steadiness in Katsuki's voice that hadn't existed 4 years ago. The certainty of a man who had fought for every inch of his future and won. I've been granted rank. Their foreheads nearly touched. Their breaths mingled in pale clouds. I have a name now. His nose brushed Izuku's lightly, a familiar gesture, an intimate one. The Omega's heartbeat stuttered. At last, Katsuki continued softly, I can ask for you properly. The world seemed to stop. We can be together. His crimson eyes never left Izuku's. I can make you my spouse. A trembling breath. We can become a family. For a moment, Izuku could only stare. Then his eyes began to shine. Because this was the dream. The future they had imagined beneath a willow tree years ago. The future they had clung to through war, separation, and endless winters. The future that had once seemed impossible. The war had taken Katsuki away from him, but it had not taken his promise. And now, at long last, 4 winters had come and gone. The waiting was over. The loneliness was over. And happiness, patient and stubborn as spring itself, had finally found them again. And that is it for 4 Winters by feeyaj. Wasn't that sweet and romantic? I absolutely loved it. I enjoy all the stories that I narrate here, which is why I narrate them. But this one really struck me in the heart because it's just so romantic. And like I said earlier, I love historical pieces. There's something about your favorite characters in a different setting, a different place, a different time. It's such great storytelling, and I just love this one. I hope you enjoyed it too. If you did, please go over to AO3 and let the author know that you enjoyed it. You can find the link to the story in the description, and leave them some kudos, some comments. And please don't forget to like this video to let me know that you liked it and you would like to see more of this kind of story. Also, leave me comments and let me know what kinds of stories you would like to hear. If you have any suggestions, please let me know. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future stories. Thanks for listening.